I grew up the youngest in a musical family. My father was a drummer, so I was in love with the drums ever since I was literally an infant in diapers. I couldn't wait for my father to come home, and he'd come home with the drums, and that always excited me. He wasn't much of a technician. He was, was more of a timekeeper, and that's something he tried to instill into me. There's different kinds of music coming from every room in the house. My mother was a singer-actress. My two older brothers, respectively, played bass and piano. So I kind of rounded out the rhythm section. So we grew up, three boys that would play baseball, and then we'd go inside and we'd play music. Whether it was Beethoven, Kiss, Led Zeppelin, Count Basie, Miles Davis, Chicago, whatever. There was always different music coming from the house, and it was a great way, a supportive way to give myself a musical foundation. I was very fortunate in that regard. So at a certain point, my brothers and I became really proficient, and they played with older musicians that they met in high school and then out in the real world, and I often got pulled along. So I was always playing with musicians that were older and had more experience. And by the time I was like 8 or 9, I was gigging fairly regularly. So that was great on-the-job training, playing music, everything from rock, reggae, the Fascination Waltz, old-timey stuff, and reading charts. And that really was my education, So by the time I got to Berkeley, I had a lot of stuff, fairly together or in place that could be molded a little bit more and honed in on. And that's sort of what Berkeley was for me. I only had money to go 1 year. I looked at it as I want to be responsible. There's a lot of irresponsible musicians, and there's simple things that you can do to accelerate your career by being on time, being prepared, having the right gear, and just being a good guy and leaving people happy that you were there, especially the guy who's signing the check. And then you get called back, and then other musicians recommend you for other things. So that was sort of the snowball effect that I was striving for. So through that work ethic, that led me to playing with some of the guys that were doing the recording sessions in Chicago. And at that time, and for many years, Chicago was like the mecca for jingles, music for television and film commercials. There was a couple musicians that stuck their necks out for me and recommended me when the producers couldn't get their regular guys. So still with that same work ethic of knowing when to talk, knowing when to shut up, and not being afraid to ask questions if you have a question on a chart. It's better than trying to fake your way through it. Things snowballed to where I kind of caught the last tail end of the glory years in Chicago. It was right around that time is when I got the call from Styx to essentially go in and ghost drum for John Panazzo, Styx's original drummer, who was in ill health, for the remake of Lady for the Greatest Hits package. And that was sort of the genesis of my work with them. I just thought it was one session, went in, played, great, see you guys later. They called me back to do another session a year later in early '96, and I kind of got the feeling that something was brewing. And a couple days after the session, James Young called me and said, well, what are you doing this summer? So I've sort of been here ever since. I mean, I just thought it was going to be a one tour and that was it. And here we are 14 years later. But what I thought was just one session and what I thought was just one tour has turned into probably what most people know me for. We've really gone towards a high-energy live rock show that's pretty much, both barrels blasting the whole time. I mean, there's an ebb and flow to the show. But really, once a band is tethered to people's memories, that's a powerful thing, and that's why bands like Styx can always go out and play. Thankfully, I mean, there's always an audience of people that want to come and see the show. And that's something I don't take for granted. Being that I was a fan of the band, I saw the band 3 times as a kid growing up. So to end up in the band is, I mean, it's something you can't even imagine. You can't even comprehend that sort of thing happening. Well, we're overdue for a new record of original material. I'm a strong proponent of doing that. But the last time we did that was 2003, and then we did a covers record in 2005 because we'd played at Eric Clapton's Crossroads, and one of the things that we played was I'm the Walrus by the Beatles, of course. And all of a sudden, all the interviews for all the stations that Jay was doing interviews for said, oh yeah, send us a copy. And before you know it, we had on Classic Rock Radio a #2 hit, Behind You Too, with something that wasn't on an album. It wasn't even a saleable item. So the record company said, make a covers record like now. So that's pretty much what we did, is we took some songs that influenced the band and did a covers record. So that was really our last studio record. I first got the call to work with Brian Wilson from the guy that was producing him at the time, a guy named Joe Thomas in Chicago. And he'd already recorded most of the record with a lot of Nashville guys, and there's still a couple tracks left, so he called me in to do it. And then Brian was going to do 2 short legs of a tour. And Brian had never done a solo tour before. So he asked me if I was available to do it, and I was on break from Styx. So it was this wonderful 10-piece band that got together to really lovingly recreate Brian's music. It's just great to play that music. I mean, he's written songs that will last for generations to come. You know, God Only Knows, Don't Worry Baby. Those are 2 of the most amazing pop songs of the 20th century. With Taylor's records, when we started the first one, I thought, you know, it's time to do something creative. I mean, I always enjoy producing, but sometimes when you're not the producer, you have to watch how much you suggest. You know, you have to know when you can open your mouth. So it was fun to sort of have the final say about every sound and every take, you know. So I worked with Scott Bennett, who I go way back with in sessions in Chicago, and was in the Falling Walendas with him. Scotty and I worked with Taylor on her first record, Lullaby, which came out in 2007, and then her second record, Under the Surface, it came out last year.